If you look at the title of this, and I was thinking to myself, I'm just like, uh, why continue it after Henry left? Like, why recast him? I don't think it's going to work or help the show, especially with the direction that we're going in. But let's all laugh and have a good time here. Get on over to Critical Drinker. Subscribe. Tell them Tyrone Magnus sent you.
Hey, remember The Witcher, everyone? Remember how we were all super excited to get this awesome big-budget TV adaptation of one of the most beloved dark fantasy series of all time? Remember how cool it was that Henry Cavill was playing Geralt of Rivia because he was a massive fantasy nerd and a huge fan of The Witcher books? Remember tuning in for that first season and slowly realising the narrative was a confused jumble of absolute nonsense that jumped backwards and forwards all over the place with zero explanation, punctuated by the occasional mildly entertaining Monster of the Week adventure, and half the major characters were race swapped because Netflix, and Yaski was now an insufferable prick that made you want to gouge out your own eyeballs in sheer frustration, and you could never tell where you were in the world because every single village and town contained the same baffling melting pot of ethnic diversity as a modern-day American city, and for some reason Geralt was relegated to a background character in his own show, and basically the whole thing was a feminist power fantasy written by frustrated middle-aged liberal white women.
He's going off.
Yeah, that. Well, good news, because The Witcher's back for season 4. Well, I say The Witcher, I really mean the Yennefer and Ciri show with a special guest appearance by Geralt of Rivia. Yeah, it's lost its lead actor and the vast majority of its audience and probably every shred of fan goodwill it might have once had, but it's back all the same. And I have to admit, my first thought when I saw the teaser trailer the other day was, why in the Christ mothering are Netflix still pouring money into this black hole of talent and creativity? Like, who's The Witcher even made for now? Who do they expect to watch this piece of It's not fans of the books or even the games, that's for sure. The show's got about as much in common with the source material as I've got in common with Last Jedi Defenders. It's not fans of the first couple of seasons either, because the handful that actually managed to slog through 3 seasons of this nuclear-grade slag...
Yeah, I couldn't do it. I tried a couple of times and I just couldn't get through it. And there were people telling me, like, yeah, it's okay. It's okay if you can't make it through it, man. We understand.
Pretty much abandoned ship the moment Henry Cavill bailed out. And don't worry, I'm going to talk more about that shortly. Believe that! And it's not for casual fans of fantasy adventure either, because this show abandoned any pretense about being fun, fantasy, or adventure when Blood Origin was excreted out onto our screens.
Oh, I forgot about that.
Jesus, that series was so bad, I think it gave me legitimate brain damage. Then again, it might have been the pint of hydraulic fluid that I forcefully drank afterwards. Who can say, really?
Sounds like Skank from The Wraith. Watch The Wraith with Charlie Sheen. Watch The Wraith. It's hilarious and a great car movie.
The point I'm making here is that The Witcher is the deadest of dead horses at this point, and flogging it even harder with each passing year isn't going to bring it back to life. At best, you might get an expulsion of decomposition gases building up inside the rotten digestive tract, and at worst, you'd be better off dumping $100 million into a big pile and lighting the thing on fire. At least that way it would look cool for a while. And the thing that's so ball-achingly frustrating about all of this is that it never should have happened this way in the first place.
Right.
There's actually a world where The Witcher went on to become the next Game of Thrones, a mature, violent, and complex dark
That's what a lot of people thought it was going to be, man.
fantasy show with an excellent cast that perfectly captured the adventure and the danger of the books, harnessed the popular zeitgeist, and was universally beloved by everyone. But that world never came to be, because let's be honest, we live in the timeline imaginable, and everything that should be great ends up sacrificed on the altar of Hollywood hubris and the message. Honestly, if reincarnation turns out to be real, knowing my luck, I'll come back as myself, just so that I have to experience this crap all over again.
No! Oh, please, God, no!
Looking back with the benefit of hindsight, it's pretty obvious now that this show was always doomed to failure. For a start, there was Andrzej Sapkowski, the author of the Witcher books, and in theory the first line of defense against adaptations. I mean, the guy's a great writer for sure, but also possibly the world's worst businessman, selling the game rights to CD Projekt Red back in '97 for a pitiful amount, and actually turning down a profit-sharing agreement. A decision that cost him tens of millions of dollars in lost royalties.
Wow.
What are you? And by all accounts, his agreement with Netflix was just as given him almost no creative control over the show, meaning that it was entirely in the hands of the showrunners themselves. As he admitted himself, he visited the set a couple of times and offered them some ideas, but the Netflix team never listened to them and treated him like a complete nobody. That's his own words right there, not mine.
Sounds like George Lucas, with him giving notes and everything for The Last Jedi, and they didn't pay a damn attention to it.
In fact, lack of respect for Sapkowski and his work was a bit of a running theme throughout the show. As former showwriter Beau DeMaio
probably had a good time meeting Henry, if he did. I'm sure because Henry was a fan of the books. So Henry probably treated him well.
Later revealed, the writing team disliked the books and actively mocked the source material for being outdated and problematic. Because of course they did. I mean, just take a look at these people. If this group of unique individuals doesn't scream hardcore, gritty, dark fantasy fanatics, then I just don't know what does. You know, one of the problems with hiring a bunch of millennial feminist activists to write your show is that they only really know how to write for a very specific audience. Other millennial feminist activists. And I hate to be the bearer of bad news on this one. In fact, that, I actually love it. But the average fantasy fan doesn't give a about your stupid activism and your Southern Californian progressive girl power characters. Notice how the entire focus of the show became Yennefer and Ciri, while Geralt just kind of hung around in the background looking sad. Notice how all the male characters had the same blandly agreeable, mildly neurotic and carefully controlled pussification that you get every single time from writers that have never come within a nautical mile of actual masculine behaviour. The other safeguard that should have prevented this disaster was Henry Cavill, who was a huge fan of both the books and the games, knew the lore like the back of his hand, and wasn't shy about letting people know it.
So do you correct?
All the time.
I don't necessarily... I am effusive about getting the being loyal to the source material.
Of course, that stuff made him problematic and difficult for the showrunners, who got butthurt that the actor knew their own jobs better
than they did,
and soon began to refer to him as a toxic gamer bro who constantly argued and made life difficult for them.
Oh no, how terrible. That's just awful. How terrible. Oh no.
Oh, stop it, guys. I can only like him so much. Cavill, to his credit, clearly did his level best to steer the show away from disaster, but one guy can only do so much against that kind of collective. And by season 3, he was done and bailed on the show. And I don't blame him one bit. Being in The Witcher at this point isn't a privilege, it's a humiliation ritual. Honestly, that guy's career is going to go down as one of the biggest wastes of talent and potential in Hollywood history. He keeps signing on to projects that he's 100% passionate about, that have all the makings of success, only to get screwed over by incompetent directors and showrunners time and again. And I've no doubt that the same thing's going to happen to his Warhammer 40k show.
I was just about to say that. I am worried about his Warhammer show. I am worried, but I'm like, if he's going forward with it, he's probably learned from other issues in his career. So I'm assuming it's going to work, or at least be accurate. It may or may not be a hit, but it won't be all effed up and woke.
Because let's be real here, could you imagine for 1 second that world being realised by writers that are softer than my first? And so, what do we have left, dear viewer? Another season of a show that nobody's interested in? A new leading actor who's just a cheaper replacement for someone way better? I mean, I like Liam Hemsworth and all that, and he seems like a good lad, but let's be honest here, he's the guy you hire when you can't afford his big brother. The Witcher at this point feels like some weird holdover from the late 2010s, when race swapping and girl bosses and feminist reimaginings of classic franchises were all the rage, instead of relics from timeline that the rest of us would rather forget. It's a show that somehow managed to cling on to existence like that skid mark you left in your toilet bowl that just won't shift no matter how many times you pissed directly on it, and you know you're gonna have to get the bleach and scrubbing brush to finally put an end to the bastards. The Witcher should have died 3 or 4 years ago, and keeping it alive as this horrifying zombie franchise isn't just cruel to the source material, it's even more cruel to anyone dumb enough to watch the thing. Anyway, that's all I've got for today.
He went off on this.
Go away now.
Yeah, he went off on this one. My God, drinker. Well, trying to think of anything false that you said or anything I don't agree. Well, there you go. I can't bring myself to watch this season 4. Maybe I'll watch like the first episode just for sport. Just for sport. Just to see what Liam does with it. But other than that, it's like, come on, man. A lot of people were there for Henry and for them bringing the Witcher story properly to the big screen, or little screen. We didn't, so it is what it is. 10 million subscribers. Whoa.